Welcome to Empire State of Grind, a podcast about the people building the next wave of tech startups in and out of New York City. Please be advised that the hosts of this podcast are practicing lawyers or other professionals in the tech industry, and that some of the guest employers on this podcast may be clients of the hosts. The information and content provided during this podcast are for informational purposes only and should not be construed as legal or financial advice or as the positions or stances of the employers of any of the individuals.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Empire State of Grind, the show where we learn about the people building the next wave of tech startups in and out of New York City. On today's episode, I sit down with Rob Bailey, the COO of CrewAI, a multi-agentic AI platform that is democratizing access to building and deploying automated workflows using any LLM and cloud platform. It's really cool stuff. We also discuss our shared love for music and martial arts, and of course, Rob's take on why NYC is the best city in the world. Let's dive in.
So welcome back, another episode of Empire State of Grind. We're here with Rob Bailey, the COO of CrewAI. Rob, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure. So let's get into it. Tell us a little bit about the company. Like, what is the product? What is the problem you're solving?
Sure. So CrewAI is a leading platform for multi-agentic AI agents.
Okay.
The company was founded a year ago as a highly popular open source framework, and it's kind of evolved very quickly from just that into also an enterprise platform, which we're launching in a GA next week.
Oh, that's exciting.
Exciting and not a lot of sleep.
Yeah, I was going to say, especially thanks for the time then.
Of course.
So what is a what did you say? Multi-agentic
platform, yeah,
okay.
for AI agents.
Okay. Can you dive into that a little?
Totally. I'm actually going to start by not answering the question.
Okay.
And what I'm going to start off with instead are LLMs, the
okay,
large
perfect.
language models. So a few years ago, I've been building AI companies for like 15 years, and it was never really that special. I did a company called DataSift, which was AI for real-time social data, which we sold to a Norwegian company. And then I actually came to New York in 2016 to do a company called Customer. I joined as number 5 as just like 4 or 5 guys in a pretty awful WeWork office with one printer. And that company ended up doing extremely well.
Yeah, we've heard of them.
Yeah, sold to Facebook. Exceptional founders, Jeremy and Brad. Anyway, over the last few years, obviously LLMs came out, and that sort of started to really mainstream the idea of using AI in day-to-day workflows,
right?
Even for non-technical people. What's happened is something like half to 2/3 of Americans are using AI, are now using LLMs on a regular basis, most commonly ChatGPT. The problem is LLMs they're incredible technology, and they're very good for basic kind of one-shot type of functions, putting together a press release,
right?
Generating a list of marketing slogans. But LLMs, as they are currently articulated, are not really good for solving especially more complex work cases or work use cases. So what's happened is this emerging layer that's called sort of an AI agentic layer, where you essentially orchestrate a number of AI agents, many times powered by LLMs, to actually execute on complex tasks. So think of the agentic layer as a value-added layer that sits on top of LLMs and actually unleashes all of their power and potential for enterprise use cases.
That's cool. And they do that, like, I'm used to the idea of an agent as a kind of like tool that is grabbing data from a source. Is that how it's meant in this context, or?
That's part of it.
Okay, so it's enriching kind of what data the LLMs are using to get the answers to these questions? Or?
It can do all kinds of stuff. I mean, Since I joined CrewAI in May of this year, we've probably talked to more than 1,000 customers, and we now have had developers in over 150 countries download our framework. So it's massive. We've talked to tons of people.
That's cool.
I've talked to single player companies where it's like some Pakistani founder, sitting on his couch in Islamabad, to major Fortune 500 companies that are all trying to figure out how to use LLMs and AI to actually solve different company problems. So there's tons of use cases. What you're sort of describing is one of the most common ones, where you have a set of AI agents that go and pull data from some source,
right?
Ingest it, And then where it starts to get really interesting is you can then have agents, a separate set of agents actually synthesize the data and then produce outputs of the data in the form of PowerPoint presentations. We've seen some hedge funds actually using Cruise to output fully baked financial models.
That's
so it's
cool.
Pretty crazy.
And then is the idea the platform allows the customer to kind of configure it based on what they're looking to do? And you have different...
Yes.
Do you use the term agent? Like different agents that
We
are
do
allowed
use the term
to
agents a lot, all the time.
Yeah, I'm learning a lot here.
Should be a keyboard shortcut on my laptop. Yeah, we think, part of the challenge that's happened with AI is it's pretty technical.
Right.
And so while a lot of people probably use applications day to day that on the back end are powered by AI, and great examples are Google search,
right,
Facebook algorithms, Instagram's algorithms. The reality is that AI, in terms of being a workable tool that people incorporate into their workflows, has never really been very accessible. So a big part of what we're trying to do with CrewAI is really democratize access to sort of this powerful layer of AI agents. And we're doing that by launching a enterprise platform that is super easy to use and contains a bunch of components that are basically no code. So within the next few months, people with no technical background whatsoever can actually come to our platform. They can create a set of agents, which we call crews, articulate them together, test them out, deploy them, and then actually iterate them and run the whole life cycle of a group of agents.
I'm seeing the big picture now. It's similar to, I guess, on the AI level of like a low-code application builder.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. So it's somebody said that we're trying to do for website design, we're trying to do for work processes and automation. What companies like Squarespace,
right, or Wix or whatever,
Salesforce have done for their category. So
which makes it people like me can use it. Basically,
100%.
Yeah, that's very cool. Okay, awesome.
So it's been really exciting.
Do you guys do you have different like B2B products and B2C products, or it's one single use?
We're a platform.
Okay.
And so if you and I'm going to massively oversimplify to the point of, being almost painful, sort of how the AI stack works right now. So that there's fundamentally 3 layers in the AI stack for business use cases right now. So there's the foundational like LLM layer.
Right.
So great examples of LLMs, obviously there's ChatGPT, which is one of the most popular ones across all its different versions.
Claude we got, right?
Yeah, and then Llama and lots of what are now called SLMs, smart language models. So there's been an explosion of different language models. And what's crazy is the progress is moving so quickly that, it's shocking. Whatever may be the best model 1 week may be, not even in the top 3 spots a month from now. And we're also finding that different LLMs perform better or worse for different use cases. And we also find that there's kind of like a cost benefit. So typically when you're using some of the newer models, they are often more expensive to operate. And so sometimes, even an LLM version from, 6 months ago may be absolutely sufficient and more cost efficient for certain use cases.
Cool. And I'm assuming the platform is like kind of agnostic as to what a user chooses to use. You're just looking to have as much available as possible.
100%.
Okay.
So you're kind of that you're going right into the next layer. So there's 3 layers. The first layer is the foundation layer that's been getting all the press. And it's incredible what's happening at that layer right now, and what people are using LLMs for. I've been in the game for a long time, and I don't think I've ever seen technology that's been adopted.
I see it too. It's like, so I shared my background a little bit with you, but I was an in-house lawyer, and now I have my own practice, and I basically service startups. And I'd say 99% are AI tools or have integrated AI into some type of B2B SaaS tool. And like what I've had to learn about it in a short period of time of like just how it operates and kind of data use and input and output, who owns what. It's very interesting. And then having more of a just general SaaS background, you see why it's valuable.
100%.
It's like, oh, you superpower this thing.
Totally. What's crazy is that, first of all, the adoption is insane. And I mean, I've talked to hundreds of companies from all these different countries, and it's just insane how quickly everybody is adopting AI.
Yeah, I kept telling people, I viewed it as how I saw like cloud maybe 10 years ago, where I think it just becomes table stakes. Like, why would you build a software without an AI component?
True, although it's shocking how many SaaS companies are just not moving that fast.
Interesting.
At adopting AI. I mean, there's tons that are. Klarna, Salesforce, a company called Customer. There's tons of companies that are actually doing a lot with adopting AI quickly. Snowflake, but then there's a lot that aren't.
Yeah, and what I'm seeing too is a lot of the startups, at least that are getting funding and able to hire, are typically integrating some aspect of that into maybe even an existing space, but it's AI powered, or in a, like, sounds like what you guys are doing, an application that wasn't available until kind of this point in time with the technology.
I think the biggest limitation are our own imaginations right now. And what I mean by that is, in the early days, I'm sad that I'm going to date myself a little bit. I was around for 1.0, coming right out of grad school. And the first kind of big wave of companies were essentially just taking online businesses that were available offline. But then gradually over time, as the internet evolved and as mobile came into being, you started to see these sort of platform native applications that we would not have even imagined before, like, for example, Uber,
Right.
that were enabled by cloud and mobile. And I think we're in the early days of AI right now. So I think what we're seeing now to start is mostly just AI versions of traditional applications. We're already starting to see some green shoots. I think one of the ones that I'm most fascinated by is synthetic people. So we're starting off, like, there have been a bunch of platforms that have been doing synthetic, like, boyfriends and girlfriends, and we're now seeing synthetic SDRs, synthetic customer support reps.
I have a few clients, and then just talk about it in general of, right, what I think the latest one was about, not SDRs, but like call centers in general and help centers. Can you offload those people to an AI agent? And
100%.
yeah.
And I think the view of that has changed a lot. I think 5 or 10 years ago, people really hated AI and automated responses, and they were right. And I think a lot of that was because the technology around voice recognition, NLP, was very limited. That's changed, especially with this kind of mainstreaming of LLMs. And so you're now seeing just this tidal wave of new support applications powered by LLMs that, in my opinion, are often better than people.
Yeah, I think too, there's like a social component where you're just more used to not dealing with a person for like customer interactions, that you're probably just more comfortable with it. Where 5 years ago, you're just pounding your phone, like, which one of these buttons gets me a human on the other side? Where now it's like, I just want my problem solved. I don't care who I'm talking to.
I think what it's really about is this evolution from deterministic kind of structured computing to what is now more probabilistic and stochastic. And the use case you're describing around customer support, especially if it's less structured, is a problem that is better fit to the technology that is AI.
That's true.
Especially with strong components of LLM and an NLP than some of the more traditional technology.
Awesome.
We're going to take a short break to hear from one of our sponsors, but when we come back, we'll learn about Rob's role as COO, some cool customer use cases, and what attracted him into tech. We'll also discuss some similarities we see in the tech and entertainment industries and how I fell into my role as a tech attorney from working in the music industry.
This episode is brought to you by NextGen Law. NextGen Law supports today's modern tech companies, bringing expertise in drafting and negotiating customer contracts and scaling of go-to-market legal functions. For more information, visit nextgenlaw.com. That's NextGenLaw with hyphens in between each word.com.
All right, I want to shift gears a little bit and kind of go back to like CrewAI as a company.
Sure.
So one thing we like to know is, like, just to get an idea, the company size through whatever metrics you're willing to share. So if it's employee count, customer count.
Yes, let me think. So I'll start with the easy one, which is employees. I think we just crossed 15. When I joined in May, it was like 3 or 4, but we are growing really, really fast.
That's great.
And I expect we'll probably double again. I think it's more than doubled in the last. We've gone up by let's 4 or 5x since I started, and I think we'll probably double or triple in the next few months.
That's exciting.
Yeah, super exciting. And then some of the stats that I think we've been more public about. Let's see, our multi-agentic framework has been downloaded in more than 150 countries. We're doing more than 10 million agent executions per month. And we have a wait list of over 40,000 people that have signed up to use our enterprise platform.
That's awesome. And is that the product you're saying you're GAing in the next few weeks?
Correct.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's very exciting. Haven't slept much.
Yeah, I can imagine. All right, cool. And do you have I think I already know the answer, but do you have a typical like customer profile, or is the idea of this is a sandbox, you build whatever is useful for your specific need?
I would say right now, a typical customer is more a persona, which is somebody with some technical background.
Yeah, that makes
that
sense.
typically has programmed in Python and or has used our open source framework. That is our ideal customer that wants to build and launch quickly.
So I guess that's like the user, but where they're at, like let's say they're at a company, the company of the customer is kind of agnostic, right? Or that's the goal.
We want to be universal.
Yeah.
We want to support everybody. And so that's why I deliberately gave more of a persona than a company size. We've seen fascinating use cases, everything from, I talked to a pop music producer in Stockholm that was articulating Cruise. And what he would do is he'd come up with a basic riff, and then he would use Cruise to do 50 to 100 different permutations of a pop song.
That's cool.
And then use another set of Cruise to evaluate the pop songs. So we have these like extremely creative single player shops. And on the other hand, we have, $500 billion AUM funds that are using our Cruise to create financial models. So it's really a wide spectrum.
I mean, that's one thing I noticed at Datadog that was very helpful is like we were able to provide value regardless of kind of like how your applications or infrastructure were structured. So we didn't tell you have to do it this way in order for us to prove value. It was whatever you're doing, hopefully we can help.
100%.
And I think that's like, obviously it sounds great, but if it's kind of hard to do, right? Or to build products that actually work in that way. But it's fun because it allows customers to even help you build the product better because there's more use cases that they can give you feedback on, right? Than just this one vertical we're going after. So I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be the dichotomy of top down or bottom up through PLG. And I think now we kind of jokingly call it like the pincer or anything like that, in the sense that obviously big companies are where most of the money is from a revenue perspective. And hey, we all need to make money. But it's really the long tail of developers that I think create that kind of groundswell, create the standard. And I think by serving, as they call it, the long tail, and even individual developers, it really forces a discipline around how easy your product is and how quickly users can get to value.
I totally agree. Enterprise software is great, but it can be narrow. And to your point, it's maybe not easy for everyone to use, where if you have more just feedback from all types of people, I do think you come to a better like user experience, which can't help but drive a better product.
Yes. And there's lots of, the good news is there's lots of great models to learn from. One of my personal favorites is Slack. I think what Stuart did with Slack was incredible. And I think, amazing how fast they grew and what they were required for.
It's funny too, because I remember my first interaction with it, I'm an attorney. I don't tend to care which tools we use to communicate, right? I get the Datadog, I get told we're on Slack, we're in channels or whatever. It's hard to describe why, but it does drive like community in a way that other communication tools in the workplace just don't, right? Like it's more personal, fun. It just works better.
I love Slack. I think it's great. I think it was really sad when Microsoft, kind of used its distribution muscle, which totally understandable why they did. I'm a shareholder in Microsoft. So from a bit purely business standpoint, what they did was incredible, but I think it was certainly sad to see Slack's growth slow. It's a great product. They created, a reinvention of the category and great company with a great founder.
Agreed. I just liked using it too. They have a cool origin story too, if people want to check it out. Yeah.
The funny thing is both his companies were originally game companies. So Flickr was originally a game company, and then Slack was originally a game company.
That is funny. For those who don't know, Slack grew from the founder. I forget his name, but you know it.
Stuart Butterfield.
Yeah, he was, correct me if I'm wrong, he was building what was almost supposed to be like a augmented reality world video game, and Slack was the communication tool between the developers, right? Yeah. And he couldn't keep getting funding for the video game, and realized, hey, this communication tool I've been building is pretty cool. Let me see if there's value there. And that kind of is how Slack was born.
That's one of my favorite.
It is cool.
It's one of my favorite. I mean, there's so much that I love about the industry that we're in. And one of the things that I love is these like absolutely crazy origin stories. Like, I think that's one, or the fact that I think Twitter started out as basically like a podcasting platform.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And there's so many of these. And it's fun to hear about the early days of some of these companies, how they started versus where they ended up. I mean, Facebook was just I think it was like a platform to rate people. And, it ends up being this like...
We have talked about Hot or Not on this before.
I remember Hot or Not. I remember when the founder of Hot or Not was one of the cooler guys in San Francisco.
Yeah, I don't think that would work these days.
Definitely not. Although, if you really think about it, Bumble is really just Hot or Not with different framing.
That's a good way to put it. All right, cool. The other question we have then about kind of the company is you're located in New York.
Yes.
You have a small but growing team. Are you guys planning on being headquartered here, or is it a remote first company? How are you guys navigating that?
We're a remote first company. And we have team members in let's call it 4 or 5 countries now.
Okay.
And we definitely find that talent is not distributed, or talent is distributed evenly. Opportunity isn't. And so I'd say most of the past 15 years, I've built companies that relied heavily on hiring engineers outside of the US, with the exception of customer. And there's just so many great engineers everywhere that, yes, we hire everywhere, but you also have to concentrate a little bit kind of the front of the house or the go-to-market operations where customers are. And in my opinion, if you want to go beyond just selling to other tech companies, New York City is the best city in the world to have a team on the ground.
I totally agree. We'll dive into that a little bit more later. We'd now like to learn a little more about like your role at the company. So you're the chief operating officer, a title that can have different responsibilities at different places, I think. What are your kind of like day-to-day, or how do you view the role?
So I started coding at about 10. And I'm old enough that like I first started coding in BASIC on an Apple IIe. I realized pretty quickly, and then again when I tried coding in COBOL and some other languages, that I'm not a 10x coder. And so that means if you want to be in the technology industry and you're not an incredible coder, you're the business guy.
Yeah.
So most of my career I've been the business guy, and that's sort of, for good or for bad, what I do at Crew. So I'm working with João Moura, who's one of the most exceptional founders I've ever worked with, and just an incredibly brilliant technical mind. He's built a bunch of great open source communities. He led AI at Clearbit, just an absolute rock star. So I joined him to essentially, I kind of joke that I do all the crappy stuff so he can do the important stuff, which is build the product, talk to some strategic customers, help the community on a global basis. So I do a lot of the other stuff, and sometimes it's glamorous strategic stuff like building out pricing models and go-to-market playbooks, but a lot of times it's literally stuff like submitting vendor application forms to enterprise
to the
customers.
choir and legal. Yeah. 1 out of 10 things is like fun and innovative, and For me, it's a lot of paperwork.
It's a lot of paperwork. So it's a lot of that. It's setting up HR. It's, making sure people have Slack access and stuff like that. So,
it's interesting because I think as a title at such a small company and growing, it could be, is that stuff sometimes the CEO is taking care of, or right? Yeah. So that I do think that actually fits more. It's like that is what typically you would refer to as operations, setting things up and
100%.
Getting them up and running.
Yeah, and I think there's probably, I would call it, two main flavors of COOs in early stage companies. So one is more of like a financial COO, and I think they're especially good into mid to later stages of a company. But very early on, a COO is typically the business person and has a strong background in go-to-market, which is a lot of my background as well.
Okay, cool. So that brings us to the next topic we want to talk about, which is your background. So you gave us a little idea, like you said when you were 10, you started coding. So kind of interested, like where did you grow up? How did you get into tech? If that has to do with school, great. If not, cool too. Like how did the 10-year-old you get to this point?
I've been in tech pretty much all my life with a short little break, my professional life. So started coding at 10 and have been some way or another involved in technology since I graduated from undergrad. So started out at Accenture on big, large technology implementations at banks coming right out of college, and then just kind of evolved from there.
What kind of sparked your interest as like a kid to get into, like what did you see? What interested you?
For me, it was the infinite opportunity for technology to be a force for change and for opportunity. So I was always the kid that was kind of looking at something and seeing the opportunity to do something better or differently. And technology is really a force for doing that. So I think part of what really attracted me to technology, and in particular, not just working at a big company like Accenture, but then going into the startup world is, one, it is immensely creative.
Yeah, I totally agree.
It is mostly a meritocracy. And in my opinion, you get to work with the smartest, most incredible people in the world.
Yeah, I can't dispute any of that. I kind of more fell into it, so I feel like
how'd you fall into it?
Blessed. So I'm an attorney by background, and I actually was working in the music industry.
Wow.
And when I graduated law school, I couldn't get a job in music. So
well, thank God you didn't.
No, I know it's been a big blessing. I got
especially this year.
Yeah.
I mean, you're probably, thanking yourself every day that you didn't go full time.
The company I used to work for has like laid off like 30% of its workers.
Yeah.
But anyway, so I literally got into tech thinking it was adjacent areas of law, like it was transactional IP. I worked at Warner Music Group like during law school and have a music background. So
when you say music background, like you played instruments?
Yeah, I can play guitar, I DJ'd, I can read and write music. I've worked in like, not production so much, but like venue management, artist management.
Wow.
Yeah. Right. So when I went back to school, that's what I thought I would do. And I did. I was doing it. But yeah, I mean, even at Datadog for a few years, I was just trying to get back into music.
Wow. That's your first love.
Yeah, no, it is for sure. But I never really wanted to be the artist. That's one thing I found like very cool about working at a big company like Warner in the legal department was like, I felt, and I hear you saying it too, where it's like, whether I had the skills or not to be the performer, I didn't want to be, but I wanted to be part of this thing that I thought was cool and interesting. And I found as the lawyer, you see like, there's a whole team that puts all this together. If you want to be one of the biggest artists in the world, tour the world, win Grammys, you have talent, but you also have marketing, promotion, the recording studios, like all of this network set up where other talented people are helping you, right? And I found like, oh, my role in the business side of this is something I'm good at that helps these people. And that's one thing I found I liked about tech a lot was it sounds very different, but I look at it as like I'm still helping creative people monetize this thing that can, I think in tech, you view it as more help the world, whereas music, it's like entertainment. So they feed different human needs, but still like you're part of the process. They need me. to get it as big as possible, but I'm not the one creating it, right? Like I'm well aware of that. Unlike you, I can't code at all.
Everybody has their journey. Yeah, it's too bad that the music industry is such a terrible industry to work in and make money from.
Yeah, the model is, it's just fucked up. I mean, one thing I like, the biggest difference I would say, so I said like kind of how they're similar, is how tech like embraces and even looks for change. And what I saw in music is like the fight to stop any change. So for example, it's like, there's no reason that the largest recording companies couldn't have just started their own streaming platforms and owned that revenue stream. Instead, they fought against it. Someone else started it. This is what people want, right? That's the way technology went. And now they're losing money because they don't control the way that they distribute content like they used to.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's unfortunately in the very nature of the entertainment industry in general. So what you're describing in music, where you've had more of a view, is I think kind of holding true for every aspect of the entertainment industry, except for maybe live, which seems to, still be booming. Taylor's making money on her tour and the Sphere's doing really well in Vegas. But I think it's because, in my opinion, a lot of the entertainment industry is based on artificially controlling something that should really be free from a marginal cost standpoint, whereas the technology industry is fundamentally based on disruption.
Yeah, that might be. I will say, I feel like I used to have that opinion more before I worked in the industry, because I think
Which industry? Music?
Music, yeah.
Yeah, I did too.
I think the view, and maybe I'm hearing something else than what you're saying, so please correct me, but when you're inside, you see all the things that don't work. Yeah. And it seems like, hey, that's a bad model for those who are successful to be giving up this much of their creative product to a company, right? And I think the answer is, yeah, if you knew who would be successful, then that's unfair. But the truth is, like, you sign artists, and I've been on like the weird side of this where like you sign someone, I've literally thought like, they suck, why did we sign them? And then you watch them blow up and you go, what the fuck do I know?
Yeah, but that happens in tech too.
No, for sure. It's actually very similar. So my point is like, you're funding the artist that you're hoping they're all successful, but or movies or whatever, only 1 in 10 is actually going to be like profitable. And you need to have a model that if you want to keep funding, putting art in the world, the one that makes up for the ones that don't. But from a consumer standpoint, you only hear the one who made it, right? So like for every Taylor Swift, how many people don't make a dime with their music, but someone put some cost into it? Right. So I think I found that like similar to investing in tech companies anyway, is like, you can't give everyone the most generous terms because you don't know who's going to make it. The difference is there's not the exclusivity necessarily in like the venture markets that there are in music, where like you do kind of own the rights to everything this person makes, and that maybe stifle some of the competition or their ability to make money or be creative?
Yes. Yeah, I think it's crazy to watch. I mean, the US entertainment industry used to be so powerful within the US and globally, and used to be such a powerful instrument of soft power for our country. And it's just been shocking to watch its decline in the last few decades.
Yeah, I think in some ways it's just globalization in general.
I think we're seeing the rise of a lot of non-traditional American content. So for example, you have EDM, which is a lot of artists from Europe.
For sure.
And some of the biggest artists like Swedish House Mafia, Avicii back in the day, are all European and not American. I think you're seeing this like absolutely shocking explosion of Latin American music.
For sure.
I grew up in Latin America, and I mean, I've been listening to Latin American music, since forever. I was also a DJ back in the day.
Oh, really? Cool.
That's how I paid some of my expenses when I was in grad school.
No wonder we get along.
Yeah. And so like, I mean, I was playing,
Yeah. What kind of music?
What kind of music? So when I was in business school, it was like I was playing to kind of like a grad school audience. So I played a lot of like international stuff.
Okay.
There was a club in Boston called Club Nicole that was playing kind of Euro music. So that's sort of what I basically
So
played.
we both went to college in Boston too. I used to DJ in college also.
Oh, no kidding.
I
Yeah.
always played more like dance music. So I played, was it Aria and Felt, I think was one.
On Lansdowne.
Yeah. Oh, that's wild, man.
Yeah. So, I mean, I started DJing when I was working at a bank in Mexico, and I started doing underground parties there. The woman I was dating at the time was, really big in the underground scene. So I started DJing there, got to Boston. There was no good clubs.
100%.
I wasn't a big fan of Lansdowne. So I kept DJing there. But I would say when I was in Boston, I played a lot of Middle Eastern music. So Khaled, Alabina, and then a lot of Latino music. Like I was playing Shakira really early. And then, but I played a lot of Latino music, and it was more niche-y then. But to see, some of these like Karol G now,
Bad Bunny,
Bad Bunny, and how popular they've been has been crazy. And then in Asia, of course, K-pop, which apparently K-pop companies are now buying up the U.S. music industry. So it's been
their
been really
model's
cool to watch
insane.
It's definitely become, I think, one of the many tools that Korean government has for soft power, and just shocking how popular K-pop has become. Who would have thought?
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we'll learn a bit about Rob's background, how he ended up in NYC, and an interesting take on what makes the city that never sleeps so special. We also discuss our failed Muay Thai fighter backgrounds. Thank God for tech. So in the spirit of this podcast, as we like to champion the efforts of our peers and colleagues, I wanted to tell the audience that our co-host Kieran Bath is also a newly published poet. Kieran's debut poetry collection, Instructions for Bano, travels through the timelines and geographies of the women in her family to understand the inherited consequences of becoming a South Asian bride. The collection beautifully addresses how to be part of a family and also one's own person. We couldn't be more proud. More information and a link to purchase your own copy can be found in the show notes of this episode.
All right, to get, I guess, back on track a little bit, although I could talk music all day. Maybe I should have a podcast about music instead. But
Do what you love, man. Do what you love.
All right, so we got into your background a little bit, but just to dive in a little more. So you grew up in the Northeast. You went to MIT, correct?
Grew up in Latin America.
You did?
Yeah.
Interesting.
So I lived overseas until high school, then came to the U.S. for high school and undergrad, went to Mexico, came back for grad school, and then after grad school, I moved out to San Francisco at the absolute peak of the boom, just in time for the crash.
Okay.
And was out there, for a long time until I moved here in 2016.
Yeah, so what brought you to New York?
Fun and family. So I'd moved to SF to build companies, make it big. Had a really good run there. Had an incredible time in San Francisco. But by the time I got ready to leave, San Francisco had really changed. It became less magical. It became more monoculture.
Yeah, I've heard that a
And
few times.
I felt like San Francisco, in terms of quality of life and how the city was run, was really deteriorating. And, I'd seen some incidents, like friends of mine getting jumped in mid-market and everything like that. So I was kind of I grew a little tired of San Francisco. I was starting to feel really small socially. Professionally, still incredible. Like just the best, it was the best place on earth still to build an early stage tech company. But I think socially and culturally, I just felt very limited. So when I would come visit New York to visit customers, I just loved it.
Yeah.
And so ironically, in 2015, 2016, I sort of said, you know what? Only YOLO, you only live once. I've had my kind of time in SF building companies. I'm just going to go to New York and have some fun. And so I came here to join a company called Customer, which is 5 people, and didn't really think much of it. Who knew if it was going to go anywhere? So came to New York to have fun and ended up just, working in 80-hour weeks for my first year and a year and a half in New York. Shout out to Bold Start Ventures, who really, I think played a really key role in getting me out here to work for Customer. And so moved here. And then also my family is here. My parents live in Western Connecticut. And I definitely realized that, clock's ticking. Time's not forever. We don't live forever. And it was really important for me to spend more time with my family.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I moved back to the area after college too for a similar reason. But I grew up around New York, and one thing that hit me when you're talking about Boston was I went to school in Boston because I naively thought all cities were the same. And like within the first night, I was like, what?
Yeah.
Things close at 2.
That's
The
a tough
music
transition.
seems weird.
That's a tough transition.
Yeah, dude, especially like I was into like DJing underground kind of dance parties in New York. And that scene was almost like non-existent in Boston. Okay. So one thing I'd share with you, I think you'll find interesting, was like one of the first DJing gigs I got was for this illegal after hours because everything closed at 2.
Yeah.
So this guy I had met, we basically garbage bag out like the windows in this club, so you couldn't see anything going on inside in Chinatown on like the 10th floor. And I would DJ there from like 2 to 6 in the morning.
Wow.
And what was cool was no one told me what to play. And right, like as a DJ, that's like rare and like the ultimate freedom. It's like I get to play to a crowd for 4 hours and not be told like play this or play that or it's this kind of thing. And I just loved it, but it would be bizarre.
What years were you doing that?
This was probably like 2000 to 2002 or 3.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. I mean, that's what you're describing.
I still played vinyl. That's how long ago it
wow.
was.
Technique
Yeah.
1200s.
Yeah, I still have them.
Nice.
Apparently they're like very valuable now.
Yeah. I think, didn't they stop producing them?
Yeah, a while ago.
Because everyone went to CDJ and then ultimately Serato.
I mean, I remember the first time I saw Serato, my head like exploded.
Yeah.
It was in the Village, actually. We're at, probably Brian, the producer, was with us. We're like just out bar hopping. I see the DJ and I see a computer and like my brain is putting together what they're doing. I'm like, wait a minute, you're playing music from the computer but controlling it over here. What the fuck? And so I've like gotten in and out of DJing like probably 3 different times in my life. And that was one that like brought me back in.
Why don't you should start it again, Dan?
Yeah, it's funny. For me, it is a little bit like riding a bike. Like I can perform adequately at any time.
Yeah.
But the other part of it that's very different is the knowing the music, right? I think that's the aspect, like people who think like, hey, I know a genre of music, so I'd be good at DJing it. Don't understand is like you have to break it apart into like parts of the record. Where would you intro it? Where would you take it out? Right? Like it's almost like research and like that. I don't put time into that as much anymore.
That's pretty time consuming.
Yeah, but it was actually got me through studying for the bar. My buddy hooked me up with like it was like a lounge that turned into a club, and I got to DJ there. And it was like I'd study for the bar all day. And then get to go play music at night. And like, it was just a great kind of like escape. That's one thing about, I don't know about other people's experience, but for me with law school is like, I needed breaks that were like nothing like what I was studying. This is not fun.
That's very healthy.
Yeah. So it was music. And then I trained Muay Thai during law school too. So that was good.
We'll talk about that too. I did Muay Thai for 15 years.
Did you really?
Yeah.
Well,
Fairtex Muay Thai.
In New York?
No, San Francisco.
Oh, in San Fran. Oh,
yeah,
very
full
cool.
contact. Yeah.
For 15 years?
Yeah. I mean, I trained at Fairtex for a long time. I was good
that's
friends with the
legit,
instructors. Yeah. I was one of the best in the US. And when they did the Ultimate Fighter show, so some of my instructors that were coaching me were on Ultimate Fighter. So personally, I had a great relationship with them. I would say in terms of fighting, it was a devastating tragedy for them how horrible I was.
Oh, that's funny.
So, I mean, I fought for a long time, and probably you have
the build for it too, so it makes sense. You have the build for it too.
Actually, no.
You don't think?
I mean,
You're tall.
I have a long reach and I'm southpaw, which are 2 advantages. But you're better off when you have a low center of gravity, in my opinion, and when you have stronger legs. And for me, I mean, I should have been a swimmer or a rower, but I was, and also I am
so fun.
Terrible. I'm not well coordinated. I'm not fast. I I don't pick up combinations very easily. So like I was an absolute dumpster fire as a fighter.
That's funny.
So the most I did was, like sparring, full contact sparring with amateur fighters and just getting taken apart by them.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's for me, it sounds pretty similar. So I trained at a school in Jersey where the head guy like trained and coached legit MMA fighters. Like, think about this. 15 years ago, the MMA was not even legal in most of the states. So the only states where you could really host it were New Jersey and Nevada and Florida. Mm-hmm. So that's where all the gyms were. So on the Northeast, like, and this was through friends of mine, like I just happened to train Muay Thai at like the place if you were going to be a fighter, you would go. And becoming friends with the guy who ran the place, I met like so many, literally like people who became world champions. So
wow.
When like Amanda Nunes first came to the US, she trained there, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Like I met them all when they were like
Khabib. Wow. Yeah. I mean, the story of the UFC is, in my opinion, one of the most fascinating stories.
Yeah, I've been watching it since it first came out and lying to my parents that it was like a movie instead of like actual real violence.
Totally, yeah. UFC 1 with the Gracies.
All right, so you have any specific favorite aspects in New York or favorite parts, areas, restaurants?
There's so many incredible cities around the world, but New York is by far the best, in my opinion. Best food, best people, best diversity, best energy. So I love New York in so many ways, and I've been here almost 10 years, and I fall more in love with New York every day. And there's all kinds of different reasons. Incredible restaurants. Some of my favorites are, I was at Satriano's last night with some friends of mine. Love that place. I like a lot of low end stuff. Like Los Mariscos in Chelsea. I was born in Mexico, so I love really good, authentic Mexican food. I love to cook. And something that's really underappreciated about New York is just how incredible the supermarkets are here. So it's insane.
Yes,
that you
this
can
is what we're looking for.
You literally can get food delivered from supermarkets from just about anywhere in the world. So I cook a lot of Brazilian where I grew up. I do Japanese. And the fact that I can...
Yeah, I've never even thought about this, but this makes sense.
This is insane.
Yeah.
So, I have probably 4 or 5 things that I keep in my refrigerator at all times that are Brazilian. And it's crazy that I can just get on an app and order this stuff. And in 2 hours, it's at my place. It's insane. I have 3 different great quality Japanese supermarkets within a 10-minute walk of my office. It's crazy. So I think that's an underappreciated part of living in New York is being able to get all kinds of food to cook.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I think what we've typically hear is the like vast cultural influences, but that's a very good like direct aspect of it. Like, how does it enhance your life? You can, if you like to cook different types of food, you can actually get the ingredient. I've never thought of that.
Kalustyan's in Murray Hill is incredible. That's great for spices, especially if you do Middle Eastern or Asian. There's, I think it's International Market, which is in Hell's Kitchen, which is a small Greek supermarket. Obviously, I buy a lot at Italy because I cook a lot of Italian, especially Northern Italian, and then go to Chelsea Market.
Yeah.
They have a really good a Pan-Asian supermarket downstairs, and it's the range of food you can get in New York that you can then cook with is insane.
That's cool. All right, Rob, thank you so much for stopping by. Any plugs you want to give, like where, if someone wants to check out Crew, what's the website, the platform? Sounds like maybe you're signing up some new customers.
Absolutely. If you're thinking about working with AI in your company, would encourage you to check out CrewAI.com and maybe tweet at me. You can follow me on Twitter at RMB on Twitter. And if you DM me after hearing this podcast, I'll make sure you get to the front of the 40,000 person line.
Awesome.
So there's that. Would like to give a shout out to some New York funds, including Insight, Bold Start, and Flybridge. And lastly, I will give a shout out to my favorite coffee shop, Urbana in Chelsea on 10th.
All right, we're going to have to check that out. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Empire State of Grind. If you like what you heard, please share, like, and subscribe. You can find more information about the guests and sponsors in the show notes, and special thanks to our sponsors and our producer, Brian Neiman. We'll be back with new episodes twice a month, and as we say in New York, peace, we out.